Hello, my name is Dr. Karis Dillon, and the goal of this channel is to make academic subjects easier to understand. In the last video, we looked at psychology and intelligence. In this video, we're going to examine psychology and memory. So, the first and most obvious question for this video should probably be, what is memory? Well, for the sake of this video, I want you to think about the human brain and memory being like a computer. A computer can process information, and so can the human brain. When a computer is given new information, it can encode it, figure out how to store it, and retrieve that information if it's needed. This is just like our human brain and how it deals with new information and new data. To encode information means to organize that information in a way that it can be put into memory. Once the information has been categorized into the memory system, new information can be integrated either into our existing categories or into new categories. In order to encode that information, the individual has to be active within the process. There is what's called automatic processing of information, and there is effortful processing. Now, automatic processing does not need conscious awareness that the information is being learned, whereas effortful processing means the person has to pay attention and be consciously aware of how they're encoding the data. One of the ways to make memorization easier is to make the information relatable to your own life. There are three types of encoding systems that people try to use to commit information to memory. The first is called semantic encoding, and this is when people move information around to make it more meaningful. Number two is visual encoding, which means using images to remember something. Number three is acoustic encoding, organizing something via sound, usually the end of words or the root word. So when human beings are presented with stimuli or information, there's an order to how that information is stored. There are three stages to storing information. So the first one is called sensory material, and I want you to think of this one like taking a picture with a camera. So this is a small, tiny couple seconds in a person's life. And in those couple seconds, they take in millions of sights, sounds, tastes, smells, all of those items. This is a very brief stage of storage. Information that is not important at this stage will be discarded. So if it's not important to us, we can kind of get rid of that. If it is important to us, that information will move on to what we call short-term memory. So short-term memory is also called working memory, and this is the second stage of storage for new information coming in. This is a temporary storage system and tends to last about 15 to 30 seconds. If the information is not used, it's discarded. If it is kept, it moves to long-term memory. The third system is called long-term memory. It's a continuous system that keeps information for as long as the brain remains healthy. Most psychologists think that long-term memory is unlimited. The long-term memory is organized into concepts, and those related concepts are linked together through a person's experiences. Long-term memory is divided into implicit and explicit memories. Now, implicit memory usually happens because of emotional connections, which may not always be conscious. Explicit memories are those that people consciously try to recall, and this could include names of people or dates or theories. What are ways that human beings can help move information in short-term memory to long-term memory? Well, rehearsal is one way to do this. This means repeating the information over and over again, as this increases the chances of committing the information to long-term memory. Elaborative rehearsal is another way to do this. This means associating new information to existing background information. This also increases the chances of committing the new information to long-term memory. Now, memory is divided into three different types. We have episodic memory, semantic memory, and procedural memory. Episodic memory happens when somebody remembers something they have personally experienced. Semantic memory consists of knowledge and facts as well as concepts. And procedural memory is gained from watching others, learning the process, and then repeating that behavior. There are four main parts of the brain that are involved in memory. These are the amygdala, the cerebellum, the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus. Most researchers believe the whole brain is involved in memory, but there are special portions especially significant to memory. The amygdala is part of the brain that tries to regulate emotion. It also helps decide where memories are stored. The amygdala also helps to integrate the memories together. This helps in the process of committing information into long-term memory. Emotional memories are held at a deep level because of the amygdala. The hippocampus assists with storing spatial memories and trying to remember specific details within memory. Injury to the hippocampus means that new memories cannot be made. The cerebellum helps to store procedural memories as well as memories involving movement. The prefrontal cortex helps people to re-experience their memories. I always tell my students, imagine you're on a roller coaster, and maybe you're in the front, maybe you're in the back, but you're about to go over that hill for the longest drop of that roller coaster. You can almost see their faces change as they experience this. That is the prefrontal cortex in action. In addition to various parts of the brain that are important in memory, the nervous system in the brain is also involved in memory. There are a variety of neurotransmitters that are involved with memory, including serotonin, glutamate, dopamine, and epinephrine. If a person is attempting to memorize information, repeating the information again and again helps to increase the synaptic connections and helps to make them more efficient. This helps with connecting memories together. There are rare times when physical or psychological trauma can result in the loss of long-term memory, which is known as amnesia. Anterograde amnesia means the person cannot remember new information, but remembers everything before the amnesia took place. Typically, when there is anterograde amnesia, it's because of an injury to the head. Somehow, the person no longer has the ability to transfer short-term memory to long-term memory. When a person forms new memories, it is called construction. If a person is trying to bring up old memories, this is called reconstruction. When a person attempts to retrieve old memories, these memories can be altered and modified. This can bring about distortions or alterations in the memory. Eyewitnesses can be easily led to believe they saw something when they didn't. Suggestibility can create memories that are not accurate. The creation of memories that are not true are called false memories. There is still much reliance on eyewitness identification and testimony in bringing criminals to justice. If eyewitnesses wrongfully ID someone, this can lead to someone being in prison that is innocent of his or her charges. If a person cannot remember information that was supposed to be in long-term memory, this is known as forgetting. If a person attempts to memorize information, but it doesn't happen, this can be known as an encoding error. If an individual's memory decreases as they get older, this is known as transience. If a person doesn't consciously pay attention to where they might have put their keys or their sunglasses, this can be known as absent-mindedness. Now, if an individual forgets the word or phrase for something and it's right there in their memory, but it's like tip of the tongue, this is known as blocking. If a person doesn't know whether or not that something actually happened or if it was a dream, this is known as misattribution. If an individual has a belief system that's different from others and their memories are influenced based upon their values and belief system, this can be known as bias. There are many ways to enhance one's own memory, and we're going to go through some of these strategies here. Now, the first way is called rehearsal, and I know we've talked about this. Essentially, you're consciously repeating the information in order to remember it. The big thing I want you to pick up this time when we talk about it is that sleep is especially important to consolidate information into long-term memory into the brain. Do you remember in elementary school when teachers would repeat the multiplication tables over and over again so students could learn and memorize them? They were using rehearsal to help us learn those. The second way to help memory is through chunking. This means to separate the information into more recognizable or relatable information. As an example, let's say a cute guy or girl leaves you their phone number and they just say it out loud to you and you don't have your phone with you, so you can't get it down somewhere. Now, this is not a real number. It's not my number. I'm just going to give you a random phone number. I have no idea whose this is. 1-372-479-2271. Okay, so we're going to do chunking. I noticed right away that the first set of 3 digits has a 37 in it, and the second set of digits has a 47. Let's say you have a sibling that's 37, or maybe you live in an address that had a 37 in it. So you might say to yourself, my brother Steve, and that's not my brother, but my brother Steve, who is my second brother, this is where the 2 would come in. So I've got Steve, who's 37, and he's my second brother. So I could say Steve, second brother, in order to remember those 3 digits. For some people, this just doesn't work. It's too much. They just say, why don't you just try to remember the numbers as they are? For me and for other people, chunking tends to work really, really well. I don't know if you've seen the competitions where people memorize the decks of cards in the suit. They use chunking in stories to help them remember full decks. Elaborate rehearsal can be used to increase memory as well. This means that you would align new information that you're learning with your background knowledge. Let's say you've just taken U.S. history and now you have to take world history. You could definitely take items that you learned in U.S. history and kind of associate them to events that happened in world history to help you remember events that went on, if that's something that helps you memorize items. Mnemonic devices are another technique that people use to increase memory. You can use an acronym to help you remember certain items. People use HOMES, HOMES, to remember the Great Lakes: Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Lastly, here are some tips that'll help you to study more effectively and help with your memory. The first tip is to rehearse the information often and a little bit each day. When we repeat information a little bit each day, rehearsal increases the chances of the information going into long-term memory. Another way to study effectively is to use your own life and make the new information relevant to yourself. As an example, if you're going to memorize the periodic table, you could create a story like, I've never seen a hydrogen bomb. Hydrogen is the very first element on the periodic table. But I definitely have seen helium because it's what goes in birthday balloons. Helium is, of course, the second element on the periodic table. Another strategy to make your studying more effective is to take practice quizzes and exams on the internet. You can watch other professors talk about the same subject on YouTube, because there is no doubt that hearing the same thing in different ways definitely helps to increase retention. Using index cards like flashcards can be very effective as well. Having to write down the vocabulary or the definition can really help you to learn it. So when you go through those index cards, if you've gotten them right as you go through them, put them to the side and continue going through the ones that are wrong until you know them, and eventually you'll know them all. Putting distractions away and committing to focusing for 20 minutes can be really helpful. You can use a stopwatch on your phone. Committing to no distractions can actually decrease the time that you need to study and learn and memorize the items. Exercise can actually help to promote neurogenesis. What's neurogenesis? Well, this means new synaptic connections in the brain are created to help remember more information in the long term. So exercise can help consolidate new information, especially after sleep. Okay, well, this is the end of our video. Please use these study techniques if you can. If you haven't already done so, please click that like button and remember to subscribe. I believe we have 4 or 5 more psychology videos before we're done in this subject. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will talk with you soon.